China is renewing and doubling efforts to nationalize Christianity. Chinese leaders say they want the church to adapt to China's national condition and integrate with Chinese. And join us now with what this means for the church in China is David Curry, president of Open Doors USA. David, on one hand, the government recognizing Christians sounds good, but what is really going on here?
Well, I think it's really important to remember that despite the fact that Christians have a lot more freedoms than they've had in the past in China, it's still not a democracy. And the government is trying to find ways to control the growth of the Christian church, to control the growth of the underground church that has been so flourished over the years. And they're using various laws and methods to try to control the move of faith in China.
Okay, and just briefly, what is the difference at this point in time between state churches and the underground church?
Well, over the last few years, there's been a blending of the two. The state church, the ThreeSelf church, is approved by the government of China. They have more control over it, but there's still a lot of freedom today in many of the ThreeSelf churches. The underground church is not registered. They operate, of course, within civil society, and they're in many ways open and free, but they're not registered, and I guess you could say they're under less government watch or control than the ThreeSelf church.
Are the majority of Chinese Christians in the underground churches?
Yes, I think, it's beginning to be a blend as there's more vibrancy in the ThreeSelf church in China, and certainly the move of faith in China and belief in Jesus has grown over the years and is a dynamic church. Today, I was just there in China. I can tell you it's a strong church, but the government is trying to control the church. It's trying to find ways to manage its growth and make sure that it doesn't get out of hand, in a way nationalize the Christian church.
So how is this trying to control the growth policy going to affect both the state churches and the underground church?
Well, it's going to be a challenge. I think other countries and societies have tried to manage this. Whenever the government gets involved in faith, I think it's problematic. I think it could stunt the growth of the church. We want it to be a spiritual revival. Here at Open Doors, we want to see the name of Jesus Christ be lifted up. We want people to come to know Jesus in a personal way. Certainly, nationalizing faith is not an answer to that. We want the church to remain free, and the people have the freedom to express their faith in whatever way they so choose. And I don't think this is a healthy thing, but I think it's part of the development of the Christian church in China.
Practically, how might it play out, David, if the government is stepping into more nationalize, more control the church?
Well, we've seen before in China, the government has tried to control, by registering Christians and so forth. They certainly could come back in and try more control, shut down churches. There's been tearing down of crosses and moving of churches and so forth when it's inconvenient for the government. So these kinds of things could grow in intensity in the coming years if these laws are taken to an extreme, and if the Chinese government suddenly turns against the Christian church. Right now, Christians are a good force for civil society in China, and the government, I think, believes that and understands that, but they do want to control the growth of the Christian church.
Very interesting tension there. Tell us a little more about the tearing down of the crosses. We had heard a report about that in the newsroom.
Well, one of the ways you see the Chinese government trying to control the Christian church is through zoning laws. And so they don't want the Christian church to be outwardly visible in many ways from freeways and highways. And so they often will, or at least in many cases, tear down churches, move churches that are too visible, too central to a city center. So that has been done. And it's one of the ways that you see it's not uniform. It's situations and different outposts where this happens, but it does happen in China.
At this point in time, what do you think that our viewers can do to support the church in China?
I think the Chinese church is strong, and we need to understand that it has grown. It's, I would say, almost, going to be certainly very soon the largest Christian faith body in the world, the Chinese church. So it's very strong. We need to encourage them to keep their faith a personal faith, not a nationalized faith, not a government church, but one that's just connected between the individual and a relationship with Jesus.
That's a lot going on for church leaders in China to think about. David Curry with Open Doors, thanks for your thoughts.
Thank you.